Welcome back to the Deseret News Sunday Edition. Add looks to the list of factors that can provide an advantage or disadvantage in life. New research suggests attractiveness is a source of inequality that impacts wages, grades, and even how others perceive a person's competence. Lois Collins has written about this for the Deseret News and is here with us this morning. Good morning.
Hi.
What's the most stunning fact that you came up with in your research?
I think the thing that I found really interesting was that both of the experts, one from the University of Chicago and one from the University of Texas at Austin, said that beauty really isn't in the eye of the beholder, that we all have sort of the same norm for beauty. So if you think that some people appeal to different people differently, it's not necessarily true. Symmetry and all sorts of things play into a very kind of consistent view of what beauty is.
Let's look at a graphic we have when it comes to beauty and perhaps getting paid. Researchers found that women are paid about 8% more if they're better looking than average and suffer a 4% wage penalty for below average looks. Men only gain 4% for being above average in what they determine as handsome, but pay a bigger penalty if they fall short of the average standard. They make 13% less. What do you make of all that?
I think that it's kind of an interesting fact, but I think that we should also point out that there's one area where that's not true. In trades where they're kind of a heavy concentration of men, where it's considered kind of a manly line of work, women actually, who are beautiful, suffer wage-wise. I think then that there's more of a belief maybe that they're there because of their looks, so we discount the fact that they may also be capable people.
Well, what's the standard today? After having written your report and read the research, what is the standard? Beauty pays more and that's how it's going to be?
Well, in high school, kids tend to get higher grade point averages on average if they're deemed attractive. Teachers reportedly expect more of good-looking kids, which is kind of interesting and not necessarily fair. But as far as the standard in the workplace, I think that we will still continue to view each other with suspicion and wonder why we're not getting ahead.
Well, now, if you're average like me, where do we go? How do we?
I'm average, and I'm okay with that. How about you, Dave?
I'm okay. I'm okay.
Works for me.
But there are people who get outraged when they see reports like that.
I do think that there are real questions, and one of the things that the research brought up is looking at something like beauty as any sort of a standard. I think that there are questions when you start teaching girls that you have to be attractive if you are going to make money, or boys the same thing, that you're valued for other things. And there's been a little bit of a push, especially at like a junior high and lower level, grade school level, to say, let's take some of the names off the paperwork. Let's grade kids based on what they turn in instead of how you perceive what they look like. So we'll see how it shakes out. But I think if parents are looking at what to do with the message, I think you talk to your kids about what real beauty is, and you teach your kids that you're not what somebody judges your looks are.
Sound advice,
It's the best
Lois.
we can all do.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. And you can read more on this article online at deseretnews.com. Lois Collins, thank you.
You can tell everyone that dinner is ready. Oh, Rudy, I could have done that myself.
During the 80s, shows like The Cosby Show, Growing Pains, and Family Ties put the focus on Hollywood's version of the ideal American family. And over the years, television's offered many examples of what the modern family's supposed to look like. But although directors and producers try to model their shows after what they believe is the modern-day family, the Deseret News talked to media scholars who say these TV families are a shell of normality. National editor Allison Pond is here with this week's Pulse. I guess it doesn't take a rocket scientist to know that, hey, you know what? That's not what it's really like. What are the trends showing?
Well, it's interesting. There's research that traces this trend back to the 1960s when you had a very utopian view of family life that also may or may not have been accurate in certain ways, followed by the 1970s when you saw more single-parent families, a little more dysfunction, then a resurgence of the nuclear family in the 1980s, followed by a lot of edgier material into the 90s and today.
I remember watching the Brady Bunch and going, hey, we don't have an Alice.
Didn't you want one?
Every family should have an Alice.
Right?
She always made cookies and waited for him to come home. Yeah. All right, there's a new poll on morality offering a glimpse into American ideals. And tell us about that.
CNN did a poll asking about different items and whether people thought they were morally right or morally wrong. And the Huffington Post then went back and compared that to a similar poll a couple of decades ago. What they found is that attitudes on behaviors like cheating on your spouse, cheating on your taxes had held pretty steady, with most Americans thinking it's really wrong. But attitudes on some other things like homosexual behavior, smoking marijuana, living with someone outside of marriage, attitudes have really changed to be much more accepting.
50 years ago, the Surgeon General, speaking of debates, puts out this, hey, smoking's bad for you. And yet, 50 years later, we're still having the debate. How come?
A lot of chatter about this online this week at the anniversary of this report. Some anti-smoking campaigns have made a lot of headway, but there are still almost 500,000 people a year who die from tobacco-related causes, and $200 billion of lost productivity and health costs in this country. So there's still some work to do. All
right, real quick, what's coming up?
We have some great coverage of Sundance Film Festival planned, and we also plan to weigh in on the current discussion on the war on poverty that's been popping this week.
It'll be a big week, Allison. Thank you. Good to have you here as always. And that does it for this week's edition of Deseret News Sunday Edition. I'll be back here tonight with my one-on-one special right after the Golden Globes. Meet some amazing Utahns in entertainment right here on KSL5 immediately following the Golden Globes. And I hope to see you right back here next Sunday for the Deseret News Sunday Edition.